A long time ago, in a faraway land, there lived a poor woodcutter. The woodcutter had a big family to look after. He had a wife and 6 children who all depended on him for food and shelter. To earn his living, he cut wood and sold it in the market. His life was full of struggle. Every day he had to chop wood and walk miles to sell them in the market. And even then, he could not earn enough to satisfy everyone's needs. He was tired of this life, but he felt that he had no option. If he did not do this work, how would he feed his family? One day, while cutting woods, the woodcutter came across an old monk walking on the road. The monk saw the woodcutter struggling with his axe and asked him if he could help. The woodcutter replied, "Thank you very much, kind sir, but I have to cut these trees to earn my living." The monk said, "I understand your situation. How about if I buy these logs from you at a very high price? You can use that money to improve the lives of your family. Would that be helpful?" The woodcutter thought for a moment. This was an unexpected offer, and he couldn't believe someone would pay him a high price for these useless logs. But still, he agreed to the monk's offer. The monk paid him a hefty amount for those logs and gave him an additional tip for his hard work. The woodcutter was very happy to receive such a huge amount for such small logs. He thanked the monk and went home with the money. Since then, the woodcutter never had to worry about money. He used that money to build a good house for his family, and they no longer had to struggle to get food on their plates. One day, after a few years, the woodcutter was passing by the same forest when he saw the same monk sitting under a tree. He immediately went to the monk and said, "Respected sir, I will always be grateful to you for what you did for me. Because of you, I don't have to work as a woodcutter anymore, and my family and I can live a good life. I would like to know what your name is so that I can visit you and thank you in person sometime." The monk calmly replied, "You can call me by any name. I am a wandering monk who has no permanent residence. I keep moving from place to place." The woodcutter was surprised to hear that. He thought that such a powerful man must have a grand monastery with many disciples. How could he be a wandering monk with no permanent residence? Confused, the woodcutter asked, "Respected sir, I want to know the truth. Why did you give me so much money for those useless logs? Why did you help me?" The monk looked into the woodcutter's eyes and said, "You are the one who has to answer these questions. Think carefully and I will wait." Saying that, the monk closed his eyes again. The woodcutter thought for a moment. Was it because the monk pitied him and his family? No, the monk did not know anything about his family. It was not compassion. Then why did the monk help him? The woodcutter racked his brain, but he couldn't come up with any answers. So he said to the monk, "Respected sir, I'm sorry, but I can't find the answer." The monk opened his eyes and said, "That is the answer. You are living your life for others. You work hard to make sure your family does not go hungry. You work hard to make sure your children are not cold or wet. You work hard to make sure your wife does not have to suffer. You live for your parents, for your children, for your wife, for your society, and for everyone around you. But have you ever thought of living for yourself?" The woodcutter was taken aback. He had never thought of living for himself. His whole life revolved around his family and society. But now that he thought about it, he realized that he had never done anything for himself. Everything he did was for others. The monk continued, "You were working hard to cut those logs. You weren't doing it for yourself, but for the money. And you weren't doing it for your own satisfaction, but for the sake of your family. You don't live for yourself. That is the reason you are unhappy. That is the reason you cannot find peace. You live in fear. You live in anxiety. You work hard to earn more and more, but you are never satisfied. Why? Because you are living for others. When you live for others, you will never find true happiness, true peace, true love, or true friendship. Your life will always be filled with dissatisfaction." The woodcutter started to cry. He realized that the monk was right. He had been living for others all his life, but he had never done anything for himself. He didn't even know what he wanted or what made him happy. He had never tried to find out. He had never tried to explore his interests. All he did was try to fulfill the expectations of his family and society. The monk saw that the woodcutter was sad. So he said, "Don't cry. It's not too late. You can still start living for yourself. You can still find out what you really want in life. You can still try new things and follow your heart. The monk told the woodcutter to close his eyes and think about what he liked to do when he was young. The woodcutter closed his eyes and thought for a moment. He remembered that he liked to paint when he was young. Whenever he got free time, he used to paint different things. He used to paint nature, people, and various objects. He loved to paint. But when he grew up, he stopped painting. He thought it was a waste of time, and it wouldn't help him earn money. So he left painting and started working as a woodcutter. The monk asked, "Do you remember why you stopped painting?" The woodcutter said, "No, sir. I just thought it was a waste of time." The monk said, "That is the problem. You don't do what you love. You don't follow your heart. You do what you think is right and what others expect of you. You don't do what you want to do, and that is the reason you are unhappy." The monk told the woodcutter to pick up the paintbrush again and start painting. The woodcutter took the paintbrush and started painting. As he painted, he felt a sense of calm and happiness he had never felt before. He realized that he didn't need money or fame or anything else. All he needed was to follow his heart. After spending some time with the monk, the woodcutter decided to follow his heart and pursue his passion for painting. He began painting beautiful pictures of nature and people. Soon, his paintings became famous all over the country, and people from far and wide came to see them. Although he became famous and wealthy, he never forgot the lesson he learned from the monk. He always lived for himself, and that is why he was truly happy. Now, let's move on to the next story. Once upon a time, a king summoned all the sages of his kingdom and announced that he would give half of his kingdom to the one who could give him the best advice. All the sages gave their best suggestions, but none of them pleased the king. Finally, it was an ordinary man's turn to speak. He stood up and said, "My king, you seem very worried despite having all the wealth and all the power. Why don't you think about what would happen if you lost everything? Your wealth, your power, your kingdom, and even your life?" The king asked. "What would be left of me?" The ordinary man replied, "If you lost everything, you would be left with only 2 hands, 2 legs, and the ability to speak." The king was surprised to hear this, but he agreed. "Well, what should I do with these?" he asked. The ordinary man said, "With these 2 hands, you can work and earn your living. With these 2 legs, you can travel and see the world. And with your ability to speak, you can communicate with others and make friends." The king realized that no matter what happened, he would still have these 3 things. So he decided to give half of his kingdom to the ordinary man. Friends, we may have everything in our lives, but still we may not be satisfied. We may not be happy. Why? Because we are living for others. We are living according to the expectations of our society and family. We do what others want us to do, but we never try to find out what we really want. We never try to follow our heart. But we must understand that if we do not live for ourselves, then who will? Life is our gift from God. It is our responsibility to make the best use of it. If we want to be happy, if we want to be satisfied, then we must learn to live for ourselves. We must do what we love. We must follow our dreams. We must follow our heart. Only then can we find true happiness in life.